welcome back to the Boropolis Podcast. This is the first podcast for a while where we unfortunately have to talk about a defeat. Of course, since our last podcast, we've had guests on the podcast. Of course, Dimmy, shameless plug. If you haven't seen it already, make sure to check that out. But back to the bread and butter of this channel, and it's us two again, Nathan. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right, yeah. A busy week, of course. 2 games to discuss. The back end of a transfer window as well. And yeah, a transfer window, a deadline day where there was a little bit of promise, but not too much substance. But we'll get into that a bit later on.
Yeah, we will. So firstly, really, we've actually got to throw it back to what seems like a month ago, to be honest. It's, what is it now, 2 weeks, a week since the Blackburn game? But
just over a week, yeah.
Yeah, just over a week. But for me, for some reason, it feels like such a long time ago. It, at the time, was set up to be a game, of course, that was, on the Sky cameras, a massive game for both sides. Had we have won this game, we would have gone within 4 points of the automatic promotion places. Of course, we don't really want to talk about it because we got beat. Spoiler alert, if you're 2 weeks behind the real world. But yes, we'll talk about the game and talk about the performance. Of course, it was an unchanged team from the Reading game prior to that. Just going into the game straight away, really, Nathan, what did you make of us in the first half? Because Chris Wilder certainly wasn't happy, was he?
Yeah, he wasn't, and I don't think many fans will have been happy with that first half performance either. I think we were a bit slow out the traps compared to what we usually have been. Blackburn as well, to be fair, did look slightly threatening on the break, but didn't create all too many chances either in that first half. But yeah, it was a first half of pretty much just quite end-to-end. Blackburn trying to counter-attack Boro and hit us on the break, but lots of niggly fouls, lots of yellow cards. It was just quite a poor first half, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think both sides really cancelled each other out, and Blackburn probably had the better of it first half. One of the players we mentioned, I still aren't 100% sure on how to pronounce his name. I think it's Kahadra. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, he had a lot of the ball, a lot of times where he got to the byline and just overhit his cross or couldn't quite get that final ball right. But as you say, not really a lot of substance, to be honest, to the first half. I think the biggest call really of that first half was the Isaiah Jones penalty shout. Of course, as he usually does, he gets past his fullback. Just as he's about to whip the ball in, I think it's Teu Eden, I think that's his name, just clips the back of his heel. Looking back, I think it probably would have been soft, but it is one of them where you could probably say you've seen them given. What was your opinion on that incident?
Yeah, it's one of them where you've seen them given before, and when you look at them, the ones that are given, you think it's soft and it can go either way, really. So I don't think there's any real qualms over the decision not to give it. I think if it was given, we'd probably feel a bit happy with that decision, if I'm honest. And it's a decision that I don't think can be looked into too much.
Yeah, I think like you say, you can't look at the game, for me, and like Wilder said, you can't really look at the game and think that that's the reason that we lost, because I don't think on the day we were good enough, really. And, it was a bit of a surprise, to be honest, because, as Wilder said, and we'll go on to his post-match comments, but, there's no need for a game of that magnitude. The players shouldn't need G'ing up. They shouldn't need to be told how big of a game it was. And, although we had chances and had we have taken a point from the game, I don't think either side could have been, furious about it. I don't think it would have been completely undeserved. But, for me, it was probably actually one of the worst performances under Wilder, which obviously was a shame given the magnitude of the game. But that's just how it panned out. just onto the goal, really, because we want to try and get over with this and talk about a Boro win again as quick as possible. But the Blackburn goal, obviously, a bit of confusion from the corner. I think Lumley, you can see back on the camera, shouts keepers. I don't know if it's Howson or Dykesdale, I think heads it away initially. Hasn't probably heard the shout of Lumley. It comes back out of the Blackburn player, and then from then on, it's sort of, I think Jones tries to clear it once, doesn't get enough on it. It's then sort of put back in towards the Boro box. Paddy Rutner swings a left foot at it, misses it, and then Gallagher fires it back across goal, and Blackburn take the lead, and obviously that was the winning goal, but a really poor goal to concede from our part.
Yeah, scrappy from the corner, really, and everything that resulted in the goal was scrappy apart from the finish, which is it's a good finish from Gallagher. On the turn, just fires it in that far corner past Lumley, and really it was probably the only real moment of quality in the final third all day, and that's decided the game. Boro did have a few chances. Crooks had a header cleared off the line just before the goal. Connolly had a chance that he fired over the bar, over and wide, and then of course that Crooks header in stoppage time as well that he fires over the bar. So on another day, one of those chances falls our way and falls into the back of the net, and we do nick a point on a day where we weren't great. But yeah, I think this result really signified well, I think looking back, we needed a defeat to realise if this squad had the ability to bounce back from a defeat, and if it had that fight, the desire, determination, and just the grit to grind out a result. And going into the next game, we got just exactly that.
Yeah, just before we do advance onto the Coventry game, I think, it was quite interesting, really, that, Chris Wilder come out in his post-match press conference and was, quite fiery, really, quite angry with the performance. Now, I don't think any Boro fan would have been happy with the performance, but certainly I don't think, many would have thought that it was a case of Boro taking the foot off the gas and just sort of, allowing the previous positive run of form to, just carry them on through it and pick up a result, because, football just doesn't work like that. But, Wilder really was not happy, and I think there was even a couple of accusations that a few players just weren't up for the game, which, as we'll talk about moving on to Coventry, slightly surprised he didn't change the team in that game because of the manner of the comments that he'd made after Blackburn. But yeah, I think, Blackburn, they showed to me, because I've always looked at Blackburn this season and thought, they've got some great players along the forward line. Gallagher, I thought, was immense throughout the game, always giving our back line problems, and of course got the winning goal. They were without Diaz, of course, but we all know how good he's been this season. Blackburn showed more than that for me in that game. They were really resolute defending, willing to just sort of sit in and invite pressure, because really in the second half, the majority of the ball was with us. Of course, there was the incident where the fan went down during the second half, and of course, thank God, since that game, we now know he's fully recovered. And of course, credit to Middlesbrough's medical staff and Blackburn staff, because, a quite amazing action and quite amazing sort of reaction to what had happened. But yeah, just to finish up on that game, I think you're probably right in saying that perhaps we actually needed a defeat to see what the sort of mentality of the squad was like, and if we could bounce back. And as you say, that is what we got from Coventry. So moving on to Coventry at home, of course. The Saturday just gone, unchanged team again. I know I was, but Nathan, were you not completely shocked when that starting 11 come out and there was no changes?
Yeah, it was a strange team, really. As you say, from Wilder's comments on post Blackburn, I think everyone was expecting changes, whether that be in midfield or across the front line, and to be unchanged, it was a shock, to say the least. I think a lot of people expected changes in that front line, especially after Monday night, where both strikers really didn't look to offer anything all game on Monday night at Blackburn. But unchanged, Sparrow and Connolly up front with that same midfield three. And yeah, we went into Coventry not knowing what to expect from Boro, really, expecting us, well, hoping that this side bounced back from a poor display on the Monday night and hopefully came out with a positive result on Saturday, which they did in the end.
Yeah, they did in the end, but it wasn't a sort of foregone conclusion. I think everyone knew going into the Coventry game that we saw earlier on in the season, this Coventry team can hurt you. They're still in and around the playoffs, and I think they will be until the close of the season. To be honest, I think the only thing that may let them down is the depth in the squad and the fact that obviously Mark Robins doesn't have that ability to go out and spend a little bit of money that he probably wish he could. But yeah, for me, Coventry started the better of the two teams. I think we actually almost started off where we left off against Blackburn, a little bit sort of not sluggish as such, but a little bit off the pace. I think Coventry started really brightly. Of course, Callum O'Hare and Gay Keres up top for them, two players that I have so much time for. I thought as much as they didn't, make that all-important goal or get that all-important touch on Saturday, I thought their ability was clear to see during the game. But yeah, Coventry started the brighter, and Jordan Shipley, who was playing in midfield for Cov, had a number of chances on his left foot, which he probably should have done better with in that first half.
Yeah, they dominated that first half, did Coventry, playing some really good football, neat 1-2 touch passes in our defensive third. That Shipley chance that he drags wide of Lumley's left-hand post was probably their best chance of the first half, really. I thought they played some really good stuff from the front three with O'Hare, Allen and Gyökeres up front, with the midfielders and the wing backs all providing options down the left and the right, and even just through the middle. They created a threat without really causing that much of a threat on Joe Lumley's goal in that first half. Lumley had to make a good save quite late on in that second half as well. I can't even remember who that was from, actually.
It was that flick.
Was it O'Hare? Yeah. But yeah, every time they were coming forward in that first half, I thought they looked very dangerous. And yeah, it was a bit nail biting in that first half. And Boro in the first half as well had a few chances, not many. Johnny Howson played Tavernier in, and then Tavernier played Connolly in, and he just sort of hit his shot straight at Simon Moore in Coventry's goal. McNair's free kick was a good effort as well, testing the goalkeeper. But really, it was Coventry that were on top in that first half, and going into half-time, I think I was expecting the worst coming in that second half, if I was honest.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. As I say, I don't think, Boro by all means haven't been at all under Wilder. We've never played, utterly horrendous or anything like that, but certainly we probably weren't up to the standards of some of the games under Chris Wilder. And, for me, obviously we'll get onto it sort of more towards the end of the Coventry review, but it makes the win all the more important and all the more nicer, really, because, when you want to be around the top parts of the league, you've got to grind these sort of horrible 1-0ers out where, you might not have a lot of the ball, you might have limited chances, but you just get that one off the back of someone's arse in the God knows whatever minute, and you win the game. And, ironically, it was actually quite a well-worked goal that we took the lead from. But just before that, obviously, Coventry hit the bar. Kyle McFadzean, I think the crossbar's still shaking at the other side, to be honest, because about 8 yards out, he's absolutely smashed a half volley. And, I thought Lumley was beaten, to be honest with you, but somehow it stays out.
Yeah, just as it was dropping to him, I just thought this shot could go anywhere here. Centre half striking a shot on the half volley, and he's rattled the crossbar. But yeah, that was a real warning shot, I think you could say. And Coventry did come out of the traps quite well in that second half as well. But yeah, the changes made by Chris Wilder around the hour mark made all the difference really for us and got us that all-important goal.
Yeah, of course, as I'm fiddling on with my Barnet, we will progress. Yeah, as you say, Balogun and Piero were the two changes around the hour mark. Firstly, before we actually talk about Balogun's impact, it was nice to see what Piero looked like, to be honest, because I was starting to forget actually, what he did look like and how he played football. But in all seriousness, some really important minutes for Piero, and despite not playing for a long time under Chris Wilder, I think probably the grand total of about 5 minutes he's had so far in Chris Wilder's tenure. But a real sort of, I think, boost of confidence actually for Piero, because it was such an important game. As we say, it was vital that we bounced back from that Blackburn result, and to take Johnny Howson off and say, to Piero, although, it's not his traditional position to play as a 6 and sort of sit in front of the back 4 and try and play through the thirds and break lines. I think his skill set and the fact he is a good passer of the ball, it did work when he first come on. And I don't think, moving on in the future, that Piero is going to play number 6, because I think his defensive attributes probably aren't really suited to it. But a real show of faith from Wilder to say to Piero, yeah, you're going to go on along with Balogun, and we want you to try and get hold of the ball and, make some passes. Because at that time, we weren't really managing to keep hold of the ball, I didn't think.
Yeah. For me, when he first came on, I thought the change was strange, if I was honest. I wouldn't have taken Johnny Howson off. It proves that I'm not a manager, because Wilder got it right in the end. But looking at the game, I wouldn't have been throwing Piero in that central position. I don't think he's that defensive player, and I thought if he was coming on for Howson, I thought Crooks would be the player to drop into that 6 and Piero playing in Crooks's usual role. But that wasn't the case at first. Piero did play in that 6, which it was always going to be difficult for him. Coventry brought Gustavo Hamer on, and then I'm a big fan of his. I think he's probably one of the best central midfielders in the division on his day, Hamer. And at one point, they both had a fantastic little challenge with each other. Piero flew into Hamer, and they both ended up on the deck for a little bit, but I thought that was really good. Two South Americans flying into a tackle against each other on a cold winter's day in Middlesbrough was fantastic to see. But yeah, just going back, Piero was moved a bit further forward and swapped with Crooks later on in the game, which I thought was probably more typical than what I expected. Piero playing a bit further forward was able to thread those passes through to the centre forwards, and he did thread a good ball through to Sparrow, but Sparrow mishit a cross that went up for a throw-in. I think it was quite late in the game. But yeah, good to see him getting some minutes, because it has been a long time since we have seen Piero in that Boro midfield. But yeah, hopefully this is the beginning of more minutes for him. But yeah, the real change that changed the game was Flo Balogun coming on for Connolly, and only 2 minutes after coming on, that fantastic move down the left-hand side from Taylor, Tav and Balogun leads us to putting Boro 1-0 up.
Yeah, of course, as you say, and I think the Boro Twitter account tweeted out today something along the lines of, "I don't think anyone's realised how good of a goal it actually was." And in fairness, I've watched it back now, of course, and actually the work down the left between, as you say, Taylor, Tav, Balogun as well, is actually a brilliant little bit of play. Some neat touches in there. Balogun's obviously involved. It eventually finds its way down the line to Balogun, and he just gets it perfect, really, the weight of the pass across the box. And, fair play to Sparrow as well. Potentially he could have quite easily, if you're going to use the phrase, chickened out. He could have, because it almost turned into a 50-50 with Simon, I'll be honest, to get the ball. And of course he come out on top, gave us the lead. Quite funnily, everyone ran across to Balogun, and Sparrow sort of just celebrated by himself initially after the goal. But I think, Sparrow, fair play for sliding in, winning the ball and scoring the goal. But the quality from Balogun, just to pick out Sparrow, that we'd really been missing all game, was so clear to see. And of course we've seen limited minutes of Balogun so far as well, but I think it's so evident that he's going to be a big player for us moving forward. There's a reason why Arsenal fans and Arsenal rate him so highly, and although he's a striker, that assist just went to show everything that he's about.
Yeah, fantastic one-touch play down the side from not only Balogun but from all of our left side there, Tavernier and Taylor as well. A great little ball from Tavernier into Balogun, into his run, and I think he nutmegged the Coventry defender as well as he's played the pass. And then fantastically weighted cross from Balogun and fantastically placed as well, just for Sparrow to slide in and slot that one in the corner. And it felt like a big goal, because for me it felt like a Coventry goal was coming, but the changes made all the difference, got us that goal, and sort of settled the game slightly.
Yeah, it did. And obviously after the goal we did have another huge chance through Paddy McNair. Tav swings the corner in, and Paddy McNair's almost unmarked at the back stick, just to head in, and I was convinced he was going to do so, but it cannons back off the post. And at that point, the typical Boro fan nature sort of starts to set in, and you think, well, it's a matter of time. Their goal's going to come any minute. We'll hold out and then they'll nick a goal. But, although there was the sort of nail-biting minutes, and typical really as you're closing out a 1-0 win, as you'd expect, but Coventry didn't really create a solid sort of chance where they'll look back at it and think, yeah, we should have done better. I seem to remember Kerez cutting inside on his left and firing one straight down the throat of Lumley, who, quite easily saved it. But yeah, Coventry, they applied pressure. Of course, it's always more nervous as you're watching the game. But looking back, they didn't really create anything absolute clear cut, and we defended well enough to hold on and win the game. And what a vital 3 points it's proved to be, really.
Yeah, I think the only real chance that they had after that goal from Sparrow that sticks in my mind, it wasn't even really a great chance, but O'Hare with a sort of backwards header that Lumley tipped over the bar, but it was straight down Lumley's throat, really. Despite Coventry looking very good in possession all day, really, every time they went forward, they threatened but failed to threaten Lumley's goal. Just sort of that end product. But I felt that defensively, Dale Fry did really well, tussling with Gyökeres all day. Gyökeres was absolutely fantastic, a proper centre forwards performance from him, holding the ball up really well and looking to bring others into play. But Dale Fry did really well to tussle with him all day. I felt that Tavernier had a really good game as well. Maybe not so much in that first half, but second half, defensively and just carrying the ball as well. He's fantastic. Of course, the fantastic work for the goal. He's a part of that down that left-hand side. And I did see a stat from the Monday night game against Blackburn of our attacks percentages of if they go through the middle, down the left or down the right. And we're very right-hand side heavy, of course, with Isaiah Jones, but down the left, I think when Tavernier gets involved down that left, I do think that we are quite dangerous down that left-hand side as well. Although Taylor isn't the most attacking left wing back, Tavernier is beginning to provide a better outlet down that left-hand side as well. So long may that continue, because we all say about Tavernier's end product, but we'll call that a semi-assist for the goal on Saturday.
Yeah, sounds like one of them things where you play it five-a-side with your mates and they're like, yeah, well, I got the assist before the assist, and it doesn't really count, but, we'll give him that because we want this sort of, recent upturn to continue. Just on a few individual performances, I know a lot was made towards the performance of Aaron Connolly, and I know, also against Blackburn, he come under a little bit of criticism. Interestingly, actually, after the game, Chris Wilder was asked about his impact, given that Balogun had got the assist and come on and receiving a lot of plaudits, whereas Connolly, there was a few moans and groans around the stadium. But, it's difficult to judge a player after 3 games, and we certainly, I'd like to think, aren't the type to be too hasty about our judgments. But it just hasn't really quite worked out the way that probably both us and Aaron Connolly would have liked when the move was announced so far. Of course, we're still early days, but, what's your verdict on that situation at the moment?
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. That it hasn't quite gone the way that we would have hoped at first. I think, obviously, when a new striker comes to a football club, everyone hopes that they get off to that dream start and gets a goal and goes on a run as soon as they come into the football club. But it hasn't gone that way so far. He had a few chances in his debut game against Reading, a half chance against Blackburn, and then not really any chances at all against Coventry. Apart from that, I'd say it's a half chance as he drags that shot at Simon Moore. But yeah, I think we've just got to give him time. I think he hasn't played in a long time, pretty much not at all this season before coming to Middlesbrough. And yeah, he's played probably, what did he play the full 90 on at Blackburn?
Well, I think he did. That would be 105 minutes or something like that.
Yeah. But he's probably played two full games now out of the 3 he's been involved in. And I think once that goal falls for him, because I'm sure one will eventually fall for him, I'm going to put my neck out and say that he will go on a run, the same as I said for Sparrar after that Stoke game, and he did. So hopefully
It's a bold name, certainly, Nathan. I'll hold you to that one. But yeah, I think for me, as you say, from what I've seen of Connolly, and it sort of ties in with what we're going to talk about, because obviously, as we're recording this on Wednesday, not Wednesday, it's not even Wednesday, Nathan, it's Tuesday. There's been various departures from the club and things like that, so it ties in with he is Onel Hernandez and Uche's replacement, really. But yeah, I think it's quite evident to see that he is lacking match fitness. I think, from what we saw of Connolly before he joined Middlesbrough for Brighton, his best moments were little bursts of pace. You think back to that Tottenham game when he really burst onto the scene, and the one thing that stood out was his sheer pace, really. And I haven't quite seen that yet from him. But as you say, hopefully with the minutes that he is playing, and I'm sure the fitness staff and the coaching staff will be doing everything to get him up to speed. But yeah, hopefully we'll see more from him in the upcoming games, because so far, as we say, it's been a little bit disappointing. But yeah, we can't be too critical, given it's only two and a half games, 3 games. I know he has played, but he was obviously substituted early on in the Reading game. Just a question, actually, because it again sort of ties in with the striking options at the moment. Caroline got in touch and just asked, why don't we score more goals? And it's something that as you do, whilst you sit at the game, you speak to the people next to you. And I was saying to my dad, it always seems like, I know every team has it, but Boro seem to have an awful lot of these games where they might score early, but then for the final 15 minutes, you've just got no fingernails left because you're just adamant that the other team's going to score. And I'm not sure why the reason is actually why we don't score more goals, because we've certainly got the players in the squad to do so. Matt Crooks's output has been good this season from midfield. There's the obvious arguments about Tavernier, but I don't think we need to get involved with that. Do you think this comes down to the strikers, being more deadly in front of goal? Because I know Chris Wilder had mentioned about Sparrow perhaps getting more goals than scoring more goals than he should be. Or rather, I've phrased that wrong, haven't I? Rather, he should be scoring more goals than he has because of the pedigree and the level that he's played at. Do you think it's just down to the strikers, or do you think that's a sort of deeper rooted issue throughout the team?
No, I don't think it's a deep rooted issue, if I'm honest. I think just on the face of things, we just need to be more clinical. Earlier in the season, we had the problem of creating chances, but now we are creating more chances. Albeit the Coventry game is a slight anomaly. We didn't have all too many in that game on Saturday, but yeah, now we are creating a lot more opportunities in games. I think it does just boil down to the strikers being more composed in front of goal and just being more clinical, if I'm honest. I don't think many Boro fans are asking for us to be the second coming of Fulham in this division, where they score like 6 a game. But scoring 2 or 3 and putting games beyond doubt earlier than we have been doing is something that I think a lot of fans will want to see a bit more often.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, and obviously another sort of factor in that is I do think that sometimes perhaps we are slightly over-reliant on Isaiah Jones to create things. I do think that will change once Mark Bowler returns from injury. And by no means is that me saying that, Neil Taylor hasn't been solid since he's come into the team, because, I think, especially considering we paid nothing for him, he's been a great addition. He's, as I say, he's solid enough defensively. I think he would probably admit that, bursting past a opposition fullback and whipping a ball in is probably not his game. But I think he's certainly growing into the system, and definitely I think that he will improve that sort of output. I'm sure I read a stat the other day that he's actually never scored in his career. Now that might be wrong, but I don't think his goal scoring record is particularly good. That might be one that might be one to check out actually, Nathan. But yeah, he's certainly not a goal scoring fullback or an attacking fullback. But yeah, still doing a very good job at the moment. But as I say, I think once Bowler comes back into the team, which I do think he will, he certainly gives us that more ability in the final third and hopefully less of a reliance on Isaiah Jones. So, you know, if a team decides to double up on Jones, then we have that threat down the left-hand side. Onto the real, I would say exciting stuff now, but considering deadline day let us down a little bit, it's not as exciting as we'd sort of hoped for. Still a good window, though. I'm sure we'd both agree on that. I don't really know what order to do this in, so we'll start with the players that have been recalled to the club, and we've got an awful lot to get through. But firstly, Nathan Wood, Sol Bryn and Steve Walker all recalled from their loans. I know we've already spoken about Nathan Wood and Sol Bryn, so we'll just cover Steve Walker briefly. It's very disappointing, to be honest, because, you know, over the years, really, Steve Walker was always seen as really one of the brightest prospects that was coming out of the academy. You know, I think at one stage or another there was links with Manchester United. I think Chelsea were mentioned before he signed a long-term contract. He was around the team around about the time that Woodgate were here, but for one reason or another, it just hasn't quite worked out for Walker, and even the loan moves that he's had just have never really sort of materialised into lots of games and lots of minutes for him. So another disappointing loan move for Walker, and something that really is, you know, a little bit of a concern actually.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I could possibly argue with it is it seems that the sides he's been on loan at have all been at the top of their divisions at the time. Been on loan at Tranmere this season, and they're flying high in League Two, second in the table. He's been at Crewe when they got promoted from League Two to League One, and he was also at MK when they got promoted from League Two to League One. So the only thing I'd argue is maybe he's found it hard to disrupt the current starting 11s of those squads that he's entered, and maybe it'd be a better move to go to a side lower down the football pyramid, of course, that he could probably disrupt and get into a starting position more regularly and with a bit more ease as well. But yeah, it seems that his career's stagnating slightly a little bit, and his progression has stagnated in the last few years. But yeah, it is a strange one to see, but I think he'll probably end up with the 23s for the minute, and will hopefully regain a bit more confidence going back into the youth setup.
Yeah, certainly, and obviously, of course, we hope, because, you know, with Josh Coburn coming through at the moment, it's always been a lot of other positions that have come through Boro's academy. So to see, you know, Steve Walker hopefully in the future back playing football, scoring goals, like Josh Coburn's done so successfully, managed to get in the first team fold. It would be great to have two potential academy graduates that go on and play games for Boro and score plenty of goals. So on to the outgoings now. We've had plenty. I think we'll pick out a few standout ones, of course. But I'm sort of going to look at this based off sort of younger loans first, and given that they're going out to get game time. Of course, we have Callum Kavanagh, who's joined Harrogate after quite remarkable form so far for Boro's youth sides. So that'll certainly be exciting to see how he gets on whilst out on loan. Isaac Fletcher has joined Hartlepool Sam Falarin has joined Queen of the South, which, I mean, given Solbren and Isaiah Jones's success in Scotland, we hope that is replicated again, because he'll come back the second coming of Gareth Bale or something. William Cacolo was another one. I think we briefly mentioned it a few podcasts ago. He joined Burton after making his debut. His senior debut, I should say, starting in the Cup, which was a slight surprise, but that was sort of, it made more sense when Bilongo come into the club from Kingstonian. And then from that point on, you start looking at more fringe players which have left the club. Hayden Coulson, Dejan Stojanovic, and then you sort of go on to the next category of exits. And I look at Marcus Brown, who's joined Oxford on loan, on a permanent basis, I should say. Onel Hernandez, who was left, or more so had his loan terminated, and he's joined Birmingham. Lewis Wing has also had his Sheffield Wednesday loan terminated, but he joins Wickham in what I think is a permanent deal. And then finally, I hope I haven't missed anyone out, because I feel like I've gone through about 15 players there. Uche Ikpeazu has joined Cardiff City on loan. So Nathan, I don't know where you want to start with all of that, but give me something back, because I feel like I've been talking for too long now.
Yeah, the loan players, Callum Kavanagh, Isaac Fletcher, Sam Falarin, all going out to get game time at a lower level. All good moves. Callum Kavanagh going to Harrogate. Harrogate are doing okay in League Two. Same goes for Isaac Fletcher at Hartlepool. A good move there. Only up the road, linking up with Graham Lee, who's now in charge of Hartlepool. And Sam Falarin, as you say, hopefully the Queen of the South Boro link pays off once again, and he comes back a real good player. William Cacolo, I think a lot of Boro fans were surprised that it was a permanent move rather than a loan, but best of luck to him. I didn't really think that he'd get in to that left back, that left wing back role over Bowler or Taylor at this current moment in time, and with him only just making his senior debut at Middlesbrough, I think it was best for him to go out and get regular game time. Stojanovic just hasn't worked out at Middlesbrough. A signing under Jonathan Woodgate that hasn't paid off. Numerous loan spells, and yeah, I think now he's probably looking at leaving Middlesbrough permanently. I'm sure it was it a loan move again?
I think it was another loan with a view to a permanent. So
yeah,
I think that will likely probably be the end of Dejan Stojanovic's time at Middlesbrough.
Yeah, Hayden Coulson, one loan terminated at Ipswich, another loan to Peterborough in this division. A signing that baffled me, because I know that that Peterborough have signed another left back from Norwich, Ballymumba. So that one's kind of confused me. Whether they want to play Coulson further forward, then I'm not sure. But it seems a strange signing to me. But hopefully he gets game time at Peterborough. Then Lewis Wing, I think we were all expecting him to move on after being loaned out this summer. That loan move hasn't worked out for him, and he's gone to Wycombe Wanderers, who are a good side, and we may see them in the Championship next season with Lewis Wing at Adams Park whipping balls in from set pieces, because they love a set piece. Wycombe, he'd probably be shooting from corners, which they'll be loving a casual wingy banger from the byline. So there's another good signing for them. Brown going to Oxford, linking up with his former club that he's been at on 2 previous loan spells. A good move for him, to be fair. Hopefully he gets back up to full fitness. Hopefully he shows League One what he can do again, because he's done it on numerous occasions in that division. Onel Hernandez, I think, really, some people may be thinking that he shouldn't have been let go with Connolly's performances at this current stage, but I just say give it time. It sort of baffled me the other day watching Birmingham. Of course, mentioned by Chris Wilder that Onel Hernandez is a winger in a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, and he's playing in a number 10 behind Lyle Taylor and Scott Hogan. I'm lost for words at that transfer.
Yeah.
Surely Norwich are trying to help him out somewhat with a move, but Onel moving into that role is a strange one, although he was really good on Sunday against Derby County. So best of luck to him. And then I think I've covered everyone apart from Uche, which I think is probably the one transfer that I'm quite gutted about, but that's just because I thought he offered quite a lot at the beginning of the season. But of course, we've seen a managerial change at the club since then, and the style of football now does not suit Uche's game really. But going down to Cardiff and playing up front with Jordan Hugill and Aidan Flint, they're going to love hoofball down there. That'll be fantastic for them. So, yeah, a good move for Uche. And it's only on loan as well. So, hopefully we'll see him back in a Middlesbrough shirt, and we won't be seeing him play against us this season, which is also a bonus.
Yeah, it is. I think just to give a slightly more thorough opinion on a few of the players that stand out for me that have exited the club, and I must say as well, I went through all of them exits and I'm almost sure that I got some of them wrong, or said permanent and when it should have been loan, and permanent when it was, all sorts of different things. So, I mean, I apologise if you're listening thinking, what is he talking about? But yeah, one that stands out for me, of course, Hernandez, like you said, so far from Connolly, and we've briefly mentioned it so far. I would look at that and think that for me, Hernandez still had a lot to offer. I know he's not your sort of out and out striker, and he is a left winger by trade, isn't he? But in the performance where he played alongside Sparrow, I actually thought, ironically, that he did offer a lot and that he was sort of growing into that role. So that's a shame, certainly, but we wish him best of luck. On Lewis Wing, again, I think the writing was sort of on the wall during the summer. Him moving on to Sheffield Wednesday. It's a sad one for me. It sort of falls into the same category as Marcus Brown, because under different circumstances, perhaps they may have, played games for Middlesbrough, and a lot of games, and made an impact. But, with Brown's injury and the way that it sort of worked out for Wing because of arrivals in the summer, it just hasn't quite worked out. And it doesn't mean that they're bad players at all. It certainly doesn't mean that, because we've seen what both of them can offer in the Championship and League One. But it just so happens that we're going in a slightly different direction now, and they are casualties because of that. But again, like Hernandez, best of luck to those two. On Coulson, like you say, a bit of a strange one. Perhaps not so much on positioning I looked at. The fact that, a Championship team have took a gamble on Hayden Coulson, because, he hasn't really had too much of a successful loan spell with Ipswich. I know he's suffered with a few injuries, but, Peterborough fighting tooth and nail to try and stay in the division, and I know they do often play with a back five, so it'll be interesting to see where Coulson fits into that. But, if he can get games and get himself fit, then it could be a great move for him to showcase what he's about in the Championship as well. And finally, on to Uche, I think it's one of them where, of course, we are reasonable enough to realise that Ikpeazu is just not a Chris Wilder type of striker. He is never going to, running behind. He's never really going to sort of, be that dynamic forward that Chris Wilder likes. But I look at that Blackburn game, and I even looked, of course, we got the result in the end at the Coventry game, and thought, for 10 minutes or so, would it have been so bad to have that different option on the bench? And I know actually when Wilder was a Sheffield United manager, that late on in the season, that I think they went up actually. They brought in Gary Medine, and they're not so much as similar in terms of Uche is just an absolute brute, but Gary Medine certainly doesn't fit into that sort of dynamic striker. He's a bit of a plan B option, and I think that Uche could have been that for us, especially against Blackburn, results like that where in the final 10 minutes you're chasing a game. You want to create a bit of panic in the back line. You want a striker to put themselves about and make defenders really just think, oh God, I don't want him coming on. But it's not to be the case, and as we say, it is like Wing and Brown. It's just one of them where he's just a casualty of a change of manager in the system. But, it is a loan, so perhaps he may have a future. I think it's unlikely, personally. But we wish Uche best of luck again, and thank goodness he's not playing against us, because that would have been a guaranteed goal. So, we've covered outgoings. On to incomings now. No deadline day incomings, of course. Rumours are that we were rejected by both Jeff Hendrick and Kieran Clark, which, in all honesty, I don't think is too much of an issue at all. But yeah, on to incomings. We'll look at it in a chronological format. Aaron Connolly was the first through the door. I know we've spoken about him during this podcast, but I can't really say, are you happy, because we're yet to see. But when we signed Connolly, what was your thoughts, and do you think that, it can work out for him?
Yeah, when we first signed him, first got linked to him, really, initial thoughts were he's a forward that would suit Chris Wilder's style of play, runs in behind, quick, and looks to turn defenders with his pace, really. Can dribble and get at defenders as well. I think when he's up to match fitness, we'll probably see a more impactful Aaron Connolly than we have seen up to date, really.
Yeah, just sort of grouping a few players together, as much as I think we've both briefly spoken about these in previous podcasts, so I don't want to go back over it again. But Caelan Boyd-Muntz come in, a real shock signing, to be honest. No one had even seen it rumoured. It sort of just popped up out the middle of nowhere, really, and then he was announced. A signing for the future, really, isn't it? He's made a good impact at Birmingham's youth teams, a few appearances for Birmingham's senior team, but we saw at Mansfield that the ability he has, and certainly it's one for the future, where the club are acting now in a bid to secure players that had we have left it 6 months, may have broken in again at Birmingham and doubled his price that we've probably paid from this January. So a smart signing there for me. And then on to the final two sort of senior signings, of course. Belongo joined and goes into the academy, really, goes into the 23s and probably takes William Cacolo's place. So, an ideal replacement there. Balogun and McGree, for me, the two most exciting Dear Nathan, you can tell that January has had an impact on me, because I can't even get things out here. Exciting signings. Balogun and McGree, yes. Balogun, I think it's obvious, it sort of carried on for a little bit. It seems that all the exciting signings that we make sort of have that little bit, even shades of Piero at one point, where sort of he contracted COVID. No one really knew where he was. He was meant to be signing that day, and then it sort of never happened until the week after. But yeah, Balogun, we saw at the weekend his impact. We saw countless clips of him tearing it up for Arsenal's youth team. So I'm just excited to see the impact he makes. And then with Riley McGree, I think it gives us another option on that left. We speak about balance all the time in midfield, and McGree certainly gives us that, given he's left-footed. I think he's even played wing back a few times. I don't think that Chris Wilder will probably be wanting to use him in that role, but it gives us another option. And I was impressed with him at Birmingham earlier on at the other side this season. So yeah, I think in terms of incomings, possibly we could have done with maybe another centre back, a left-footed centre back, or possibly some competition for Neil Taylor in a more attack-minded sense. I know we spoke about a goalkeeper perhaps, but Nathan, yeah, on the incomings as an overall, were you quite pleased with the business that we did?
Yeah, overall pleased. 4 new faces in the door. 3 that are immediately going to strengthen the first sort of 18 that we've got available in positions that we needed to strengthen in, really. We needed to strengthen the forward line, and we've done that with 2 players. And then McGree, although we haven't seen him involved yet, I think you can sort of class him as our deadline day signing because we haven't seen him play yet. But yeah, an option in that left side of midfield that we now have another body in there to compete for a position with Tavernier. We have the right side, of course, with Crooks and Piero. Maybe could have done with someone in that Johnny Howson position. And I think Hendrick would have been that player. But I don't mind. I don't want to be taking Newcastle's second string players now that they've got a load of money. Kieran Clark, especially, that name mentioned, left-sided centre half. I think ideally we would have wanted a left-sided centre half at the football club. You saw how balanced Coventry were with Jay Clark-Salter on that left side on Saturday, but from what I've seen of Kieran Clark this season, I'm glad that he's nowhere near that Middlesbrough backline.
Yeah, I think I seen something yesterday saying, if Kieran Clark does move on, his final act in a Newcastle shirt would have been punching a Saudi Arabian player in a friendly. So, perhaps that might be up to certain people's taste. Perhaps we wanted that in the team. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, I don't think we'll look back at that. At least I hope not at the end of the season and think, yeah, Kieran Clark would have made all the difference. I really don't. I think our back 3 is better. And to be honest, if he had have come in, I think he would have struggled for games when he probably would have been coming in thinking that he should have been playing games. So yeah, I think with that one, it's just sort of brush it off, and I can't say I really care, to be honest. I don't want Newcastle rejects anywhere near us. So yeah, transfer window wrapped up. Finally, we can go to bed at night without just having a little check of Twitter before bed and thinking, is there a bid? Is there something gone in? For at least a few months anyway. Onto the important stuff. Many championship games coming up. But before we resume championship action, we have the small matter of a trip to Old Trafford coming up on Friday. Nathan, you are going. For those that have seen my away record this season, I am not going. So if we win, I want someone to buy me a pint the next time they see me out. But it's just one of them where we're going to go to Old Trafford and give them a game, aren't we, Nathan? I think there's nothing to lose for Chris Wilder's team.
Yeah, they're exactly that. Nothing to lose. I don't see why you wouldn't go there just with the confidence that this squad's built up in the last few weeks. Of course, you don't want to go too confident and say we're going to go there and batter them 3-0, because more than likely it's not going to happen, is it? Like, not many sides go to Old Trafford and absolutely play them off the park and stuff them in their own backyard. But yeah, it would be nice, and it is the theatre of dreams after all. So who knows? But players to look out for. Everyone, it's the star-studded Man United side. I think everyone at the start of the season expected a bit more from them. Looking at their strongest start 11 on paper, it's ridiculous. Of course, they have Ronaldo, which will be a pleasure if the Boro fans get to watch him play. I've actually had the pleasure of watching him play before for Manchester United against Middlesbrough, but it doesn't matter anyway because Messi's better.
You know what? The comments on this video, potentially the Twitter reaction, is just actually not going to be anything about the Boro podcast. It's just going to be about you creating unnecessary tension between the Ronaldo and Messi. So well done for that, Nathan.
But yeah, of course, they've got lots of very, very good players. I don't think we'll see their strongest possible side, but even players that haven't featured for them this season are top level players. You look at players like Lingard, that hasn't been allowed to leave, but what an outstanding footballer he is. I think we'll probably see players like Alex Telles, Diego Dallo, probably, maybe Wan-Bissaka, who knows? But yeah, just got down here as we've seen off Manchester United's training photos. Paul Pogba's back in training, so that's always a fantastic sign. I'm sure Johnny Howson will probably walk all over him anyway. But yeah, it certainly is a game where Boro have nothing to lose. We're going there, 9,500 Boro fans, outstanding support once again. And after all, it is just a day out in the FA Cup, isn't it? Boro aren't fussed for a cup run this season. Fourth round of the FA Cup. Let's have it. Let's see what Manchester United are all about, and let's see if we can give them a good game of football.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it there for me. You know, as you say, it's one of them games where the pressure isn't actually on us for once. It feels quite nice going into a game and thinking, well, yeah, of course we want to give a good account of ourselves, but you know, there's not really. It's not like a league game where we're expected to go and win. Really, as you say, I mean, the quality in their team is just a joke, really, compared to. And by no means are we sort of a minnow League Two club, but you know, compared to Championship football, although it's of a very good standard, you know, you look at the Jadon Sanchos of the world, 80-odd million, you know, even Marcus Rashford, you know, European pedigree, international pedigree. Paul Pogba coming back, World Cup winner, has scored against Middlesbrough before for Man United. So
what about that?
That's not a good sign at all. Bruno Fernandes, I mean, Ronaldo's the big one, of course, isn't it? We could go on for hours and talk about the ability that some of these Man United players have, but it's certainly not going to be an easy game. But I think it's a game, like you said, in the best possible way. Let's have it. Give a good account of ourselves. I'm sure Chris Wilder will want to, especially given it's on television Friday night under the lights at Old Trafford. And I'm just crossing everything, not only, of course, because obviously I want Middlesbrough to win, but for the 9,500 that are going, that you get something to shout about. Nathan, I mean, like I've said before, my away record is, well, put it this way, if we get beat on Friday night and I'd have been there, it would have been a worse defeat. So just bear that in mind if we do get beat. But yeah, I think that probably finishes up nicely because it's an exciting day. I'm sure everyone's looking forward to it, especially those that are making the trip. Probably can't wait for the next few days of school or sixth form or work to go by so they can get on the bus or hop on the train and get over there for hopefully a huge night for Middlesbrough. But yeah, it'll certainly be a massive occasion. Nathan, is there anything else I need to add, or do you think we've covered everything there? Because I feel like I've been talking for so long.
Just a little last thing on luck. I wouldn't have said this usually, but I'm just going to throw it out there. Under Chris Wilder so far, we've lost two games of football. Preston at home and Blackburn Rovers away. I wasn't at either of those fixtures, and at every other fixture under Chris Wilder, I was in attendance. I'm in attendance on Friday night, so I'll just throw that one out there.
Yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen. If that record continues, then you better be at every single game you possibly can be at. So yeah, it's certainly exciting. Before we get carried away and start, thinking of paying for travel and expenses for Nathan to go every game, we'll wait and see how Friday night goes first. But from both of us at the Boropolis Podcast, thank you very much for watching and listening again. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, drop us a comment. In fact, you know what? I've always wanted to do this. Drop a comment from where you are listening from, or if you're listening on audio platforms, give us a tweet, just say where you're listening from, because it always interests me. But yes, leave us a review on audio platforms. It does help other Boro fans find us. And again, thank you very much for watching and listening, and we will see you next week with another episode of the Boropolis Podcast.